Good evening, everyone. Cheers. Nice to see you all again. I do hope you're well. Excuse me. Oh, there's nothing quite tastes like the first one, does it? So let's see who we've got in this evening. I suspect it'll be the usual crew. Deco Dude, David Evans, Malcolm Spillett, Johnny Random. First comment there, Johnny Random, first in the chat. Well done, mate. The Essex Cat, Andy Hawk, Patrick Becker, how are you, mate? Chip Young, Anton, Ozzy, of course. Nice to see you all again. I'm just going to blether away for a bit while we wait for the ads to kind of finish and all that sort of stuff. Evening, Craig. How are you, mate? Yes, it's been a heck of a week. Busy old week for me again, it has to be said. But then again, excuse me, I'll just kind of speak more directly into the mic. A busy week again for me, but that's, kind of very much the norm nowadays. And I wouldn't have it any other way, to be honest. Load of lessons, load of video content stuff. That music reading video, that music notation video took quite a bit of putting together, largely due to pilot error because I accidentally deleted part of it and had to start over, which, I said, oh, dearie me, that was rather silly, wasn't it? Or words to that effect. Anyway, let's tell you what's coming up on the channel this coming week. Tomorrow, if you saw yesterday's video on the 5 licks that taught me how to play over chord changes, you will know that tomorrow there is a video coming up where I'm using those licks, all the ideas behind the licks, rather in a solo, and as usual, full tab on Patreon and all that sort of stuff. Then on Monday, we have a video that it's the sort of thing I often get asked for, 50s rock and roll, basically. A classic 50s rock and roll guitar solo, the definitive, I think, 50s rock and roll guitar solo. We're looking at that on Monday. Then on Tuesday, it's another one of these videos where I blether on about 5 of my favourite things. And this week we are looking at my top 5 performances by the boss, Mr. Springsteen. He's a little bit like Clapton, I think, in the regard that, there are entire patches, a decade or more in length of his career that I have absolutely no interest in whatsoever. But then every now and again, he just spews forth an absolute pearl of a song or album even. So we're looking at that on Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, we are going to be looking at theory again. I had a request to do something on, well, I'm sure you've heard of the harmonic minor scale, but we're looking at the harmonic major scale on Wednesday, and a very lovely scale it is as well. Very kind of, I think, I haven't come up with a title for the video yet, but it'll probably be something like, is this the most beautiful scale in the world? Something along those kind of lines. And then on Thursday, we are going to be, well, let me show you, actually. Hang on a sec. The Glary Telecaster copy. It has had a string-through conversion. I finished that off this morning, and we're going to be answering the question, and I've done the before and after sound clips. We're going to be asking, does having a string-through bridge on a Telecaster massively affect the tone, as many people claim that it does? And the results are, well, they might surprise you, depending upon what side of the argument you're on. Yes, I did, Andy. I modified it myself, and I don't have a drill press, so I did it with a hand drill, and I went very slowly and very carefully, and it's not perfectly straight. As you can see there, that the holes aren't, perfectly straight. If I'd got that on a factory guitar, I would be a bit upset. But it's, it's a cheap Glary guitar. It's a mod to a guitar. It's a homemade mod, and it serves its purpose and it does its job. So, it's good enough, basically. And yeah, then so that's Monday is a classic 50s rock and roll solo. Tuesday, top 5 Bruce Springsteen performances. Wednesday, harmonic major scale. Thursday, does through stringing affect the tone of a Telecaster? And that's what's coming up on the channel this week. So lots to look forward to. It is a pretty Telecaster. I'm not done with it yet. I'm going to take, Sean, brave man, you say. I'm going to take an even bigger brave pill at some point and do a refret on it. I was going to go for stainless steel frets to put on it, but I don't think I will. I'm thinking Evo Gold. Andy, mate, leveling frets, it's the reason why it's an expensive job when you take it to a guitar tech is because it's time consuming. It's not because it's like massively difficult. You have to be a complete spanner really to make a mess of it. Just buy the right tools and follow the instruction videos. There's plenty of them on YouTube. Texas Toast Guitars or Dave's World of Fun Stuff, they've done plenty of videos on fret leveling and crowning. It's time consuming, but it's satisfying. It's one of those jobs that I like to do if I've got a day free when I know I'm not going to be kind of rushing to get it finished. I'll just stick like the radio on or some podcasts or a Spotify playlist and just kind of lock myself away in here and just have a day. Well, not a full day, but best part of a day where I'm just leveling the frets and kind of, it's one of those jobs, it's, I think what do people call it nowadays, mindfulness. It's one of those jobs that you can just kind of forget all your troubles and just concentrate on the job in hand, and it's I find it very relaxing to do. Yes, Thomas, I know that. I feel your pain, mate. You want to get on. It happened to me the other day. I was just going to launch Zoom for a meeting I was going into, and suddenly, Zoom needs to do updates and will start very soon. Which is why I was 10 minutes late for the meeting. Do you like Saxon? Yes, I do. I did a Saxon. I think the first solo analysis this year that I did, the first one that went up after Christmas, was 747 Strangers in the Night. I do like it. It's all my sort of era, that kind of late 70s, early 80s. Kind of British heavy rock metal, the new wave of British heavy metal, that sort of stuff. And I do like Saxon. What's everyone drinking? I'm on snakebite. No work tomorrow, so I'm getting mullered. Well, once again, chaps, I'll just pick up the dead soldier there. The groceries came from Morrison's this week. It's not a bad drop, this. It's, as it was explained to me, I think it was on last week's live stream, Stella Artois have dropped their alcohol percentage now. So, this is 4.8. It's stronger than Stella and a damn sight cheaper as well, and very, very quaffable. San Miguel, and Andy, yes, I like that, but it doesn't like me, I'm afraid. It can get rather messy. New Guitar Day, ST57DG, very nice. I like the bridge pickup, can't understand why people got a downer on them. Yeah, it's I'm on the opposite side of the fence to you there, mate. It's for me, I always find, or often find, I should say, that Strat bridge pickups on any Strat style guitar are a little bit too shrill for me. You can see the ST57 on the wall behind me there in the corner, that black Strat copy there. Great guitar, love the neck on it, absolutely beautiful feeling neck. It would be nicer if it had 22 frets. What was? Oh, you're talking about fret leveling there, Deco? Yeah, spirit level with double-sided tape and sandpaper. Yeah, that's as good a fret leveling beam as you'll need, really. Yeah, so the ST57 behind me there, that's got a cheap, I think, Artec hot rails in the bridge, and it's just a great little guitar. Your classic sort of workhorse HSS Strat, really. Hello to you as well, Richard Glasgow. How are you doing, mate? Special brew has dropped from 9% to 7.5. Dear me, that's when back in my youthful days, when I was at college, they used to serve in the Students' Union bar. They used to serve pints of special brew. Dear me, that was a recipe for a rather kind of drunken evening, it has to be said. Anyway, excuse me, my glass is empty, and that will not do. What else has happened this week then? Oh yes, I've got a new microphone. Well, I got a new microphone. The Amazon delivery turned up about 10 to 5, so this was all set up and ready to go. But as you may recall, I had a bit of a crisis a few months ago when I was going to start doing some video work, recording a video on a Sunday morning before doing me lessons on the Sunday, and my old microphone just died on me. It just wouldn't be, Windows wouldn't pick it up, nothing. It was dead, basically. So I thought, it's Sunday morning, where can I get a microphone that works? And Argos to the rescue with this thing here for about 20 quid. And it's not bad, actually. It's a little bit noisy, it has to be said, but it serves its purpose. Whenever I record any audio for like my voice for a YouTube video, I always have to kind of apply noise reduction to it after the fact. So I've been hunting around for a good deal on a decent microphone ever since, and found one this week on Amazon. I can't remember the name of it, but it is essentially 120 quid mic, and it was on for 50 quid. So, do I like football, says Anglo-Saxon Warrior. Football to me is just 22 millionaires ruining a lawn. I was born without the sport gene, I'm afraid. No, it's not for me. If it's for you, then good luck to you. But I've been to one football match in my life, and all I remember was being cold and bored. So that was when I was, probably about 7 or 8 year old, and it just wasn't a thing for me like that. I do love a day at the races, though. That's something that my dad, bless him, he did instill in me a love for a day at the GG's. It's a great day out. Great day out. If you've never been, get a bunch of your mates together and have a day at the racetrack. Budget like maybe £5 for every race. And if you win, you win. If you lose, well, that's the cost of your day out. And, you're having a few beers and you're having a laugh with your mates. It's a fantastic way of spending the day. Male bonding. Tenant super on the park bench, that's how you know you've made it. Yes. Yeah, they used to sell that in the Students' Union bar as well. How long does it take you to make a video usually? Well, the shortest videos to make are the ones where I'm kind of either doing, and I'm going to bring this series back at some point, where I'm doing the what's the best Telecaster or what's the best Les Paul or something like that. Basically the guitar shopping videos where we're kind of looking at the prices and features of different guitars, because they take about as long to make as they do to watch. Same with the the why I love this album, or the kind of videos where I'm just blethering at the camera and talking about stuff. The longest videos that take to make are usually the Saturday videos, where what I've got to do is I've got to think of an idea for a solo or a piece of music, and then write the piece of music, record the piece of music, video myself playing the piece of music, record a little bit of lesson content for the piece of music. Those videos, I usually start those on a Tuesday, and they're usually kind of finished and in the can and uploaded by usually Friday morning, for the following morning on the Saturday. And there's the tab to do and everything like that. So they take the longest. But on average, I would say that if I had to make a video in a couple of hours, I can. But it feels a bit rushed and the editing isn't usually as smooth. Yeah, well, thank you, Ozzy. It's nice of you to say that I get the videos out efficiently. I've been putting videos on YouTube now for, dear me, 13 years. It has to be said, really took off about 3 years ago. And that's when I started taking a little bit more care. And, when I realized, I think I've got a bit of an audience here. Maybe I should kind of devote more time to this. And breaching that threshold for monetization, that was another big thing where I thought, okay, yeah, I've got to be a little bit more professional about this now. Yeah, favourite from Saxon is No Surrender. Indeed, mate, a great song. But, it's like anything that you do a lot of, you get better at it. I was going to say good at it. It's not for me to say whether I am good at making videos, because that would be a bit sort of self-obsessed to say that. But you get better at doing it and slicker at doing it, and you develop a workflow that allows you to do things quickly and more slickly, I guess. Just got my hands on a small stone phase shifter. It's always on. Have you got a favourite pedal, John? No, I don't actually. I sort of, by the time I could afford all of the pedals that everybody was talking about that you needed, this is when I was starting to kind of gig regularly in the late 80s. Pedals were really passé by then. It was, everybody was talking, you need a rack system, you need a stereo power amp and a couple of 4x12 cabs and an Alesis Quadraverb, if anybody remembers those, and a digital preamp and an ADA preamp. That was the big thing to have. So that was the kind of route I was pursuing for a while. And then by the time I realized, and I'd sort of realized what sort of sound I get and what I like as a sound, the pedals had sort of come back in again and become fashionable again, and it sort of bypassed me. I always remember one gig where I had a twin channel Marshall valve combo and my guitar, which was a Strat at the time, and I had a pedal board with a Boss chorus on it and a delay pedal. I don't think that was a Boss. I think that was some other brand, and all the usual suspects basically. And horror of horrors, got to the gig miles away from home, and I'd forgotten my pedal board, so I just had to plug into the amp, and I had the foot switch for the amp, and I had the volume control on my guitar to kind of roll off the gain a little bit if I needed to. And it was so liberating. It was, it was just, I got, I thought, a pretty good sound. And, I suddenly realized I didn't need all of these pedals, these security blankets on the floor, 2 different types of overdrive, 3 different types of delay, chorus, flange, phase, yada, 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 yada. And the sound man at that gig came up to me and said, your guitar's never sounded better. What have you done? I said, well, I just haven't brought me pedals tonight. He says, well, don't bring them to the next gig. And since then, I've sort of, not been that much into pedals. I'll use them for like a specific effect. Like when I did the While My Guitar Gently Weeps solo a couple of weeks back, I used a bit of chorus there, but that was just a plug-in in Reaper. So there you go. I'm not really. I mean, if I'm not sort of disapproving of pedals, but if you love them and you've got a favourite one, then fine. But it's just not something that particularly excites me these days. What do you think of this idea? Instead of a normal set of strings, putting on different gauge, like a pick and mix. Well, fair enough, mate. The only thing about changing strings is you've got your guitar to reset up, haven't you? You've got to do the truss rod and the intonation and all that sort of stuff. I'm pretty settled on tens nowadays. 10 to 46, doesn't matter what guitar, what scale length. A set of tens does it for me. Yes, Aussie, indeed. The rock stage, Sonic 8 rock stage. You put me onto that, mate. Fantastic piece of kit. And there is another Sonic 8 review coming up at some point pretty soon as well. I'm curious about their Twiggy Blues pedal board, which is, just basically a blues rig in a box. Okay, what's your custom gauge then, Malcolm? Okay, you talk about a custom gauge set of strings. What is it that made you discover a custom gauge set of strings, and why did you go that route? Because I've always just gone with like standard gauge sets. I went from a standard gauge set of 8s to a standard gauge set of 9s to a standard gauge set of 10s. I am wondering maybe to go to 11s, but I'm old and set in my ways now. I'm going to build a pedal board soon, but mainly to have different overdrives and distortions and a fuzz too. Oh no, not fuzz, please. Modulation and time-based effects, I think I'll leave to the NUX MG30 on my Boss Katana 50. Yeah. Well, fair enough, mate. It's, I mean, there's a solo coming up. When is it? On Wednesday, actually, on the Harmonic Major video that's going up then, where I did have to get, because there's some sort of crunchy power chords on that, and just using my usual overdrive for those power chords and for the lead part as well. It just didn't kind of sit very well in the mix. It was a bit muddy sounding. So in the end, I used a different overdrive. So I can see the value every now and again and that's the first time that's ever been an issue for me on that one particular track for some reason. So every now and again, I can see the value of having, maybe, a different flavor of overdrive and for so on. But, I just come from an era when people had an amp and an overdrive pedal, and that was it, and you just kind of got the results via that. Just coming from teaching glockenspiel in Blackburn to 37-year-olds was doing Baby Shark, and even the kids started to cover their ears. Mr. Oh dear me, the things you do to earn a crust, eh, Johnny? It's mind you, it's, I teach people of all ages, and some of the songs that I get asked to teach in lessons, I'm thinking, I hope nobody ever finds out that I've taught this song. Probably the most embarrassing one is, well, it's, if you can play an A chord and an E chord, you can play Achy Breaky Heart. And there are, plenty of people, shall we say, of middling years who want to play the guitar, and they've got a guitar, and that's often the first song they'll learn. And it's, I do prefer to teach it as Tulsa Time, though, the Eric Clapton song, because that's basically the same chord changes. But some people have never heard of that. But all of the people of that age group have heard of Achy Breaky Heart. John, have you gone up string gauges because over the years you found you were overbending strings as time went on? No, David. I've gone up in string gauges just basically because I was snapping strings. I just eights were sort of the first string gauge that I was aware of, because like when you're a beginner, you're not aware that there's different gauges of strings. You just kind of, can I have some guitar strings, please, as you go into the shop, and so eights were what I started on, or first became conscious of. Then nines, because I was breaking a lot of strings on eights, and then I was breaking less strings on nines, but I was still breaking strings. And then tens, I just don't break strings on tens. And I just do I like a guitar that's got a bit of a more taut, stiff feel to it. I suppose why I like Telecasters. So, tens I don't break strings on tens. And does it make a difference to the tone? I don't really think so, in all honesty. It makes a difference to the feel of the guitar, obviously, and that makes a difference to how you play the guitar. If you've got to dig in a bit harder, that can affect the tone. But, I don't, notice. I mean, you look at, I think Brian May uses 8-gauge strings, doesn't he? And nothing wrong with his guitar tone, it has to be said. What do you think of Jonathan Coe on YouTube? Like you, he knows what he's talking about. Who said I know what I'm talking about? You don't believe a word I say. Dearie me. I live in perpetual fear that I will get found out. It's just someday somebody's going to, tumble to the fact that I'm just a fat, bald northern lad who's blagged his way through. But yeah, Jonathan Coe, I really like his videos. His videos were one of the ones that the first video that I ever saw about Harley Benton guitars was, as I've said before, Nick in the States. I do hope he's okay, actually, because he doesn't post hardly anything these days. I know his daughter was very ill for a while, and he had to cut back on his posting then. But apparently she's okay, but he doesn't seem to post on YouTube much these days, which is a shame. Great channel. But Jonathan Coe, no, not on the curry tonight, mate. It's meatballs tonight. Yeah, Jonathan Coe, him and Nick in the States were the two of the people that sort of put me onto Harley Benton guitars a few years ago. And it was when I'd done that kind of thing, where you kind of climb the ladder, don't you? You go from like a cheap guitar to a bit better guitar to a bit better guitar to a bit better guitar. And then, eventually you end up with some really nice guitars, kind of top end Fenders and PRSs and stuff. And then, the financial crisis hit, and suddenly, I've got to go back to cheap guitars again. And vintage were the first brand of guitar that made me realize, oh, dear me, okay, cheap guitars are pretty good these days. Something's shifted in the industry. And then I discovered Harley Benton's, as I say, by Nick in the States and Jonathan Coe. I do like Jonathan Coe's playing. I think he's a really tasty player, it has to be said. John, you won't snap to Dario, was it Nixels on NYXLs They're indestructible. I've snapped Didarios when I was playing nines, mate. I can assure you. That has to be said. It was around about the time when I was using a brass plectrum, which used to kind of just devour strings. John, a song to accompany your dinner tonight by Ry Cooder, but which one? Dearie me. I think my favourite period of Ry Cooder was when he was in. Do you remember a band called? I think they're called Little Village, and I think it was Ry Cooder, Jim Keltner, John Hyatt, and Nick Lowe, and they were a great band. And it was like they did like kind of one album or something. It was a fantastic album, well worth tracking down. So I might just stick that on in a bit. Are there any bands that you've seen live that you did not expect to like and were great? I saw Judas Priest at the festival in circa 1980 mid-afternoon. Oh no, not this lot, and they were fantastic. Probably the artist who I've seen that really impressed me, and I've never heard of him before this gig, and I became a huge fan after that gig, was an Italian singer-songwriter called Zucchero, who had one hit in the UK called Senza una donna, Without a Woman, which I think he did it as a duet with Paul Young. And I saw him supporting Eric Clapton at the NEC, and he was fantastic. And most of the set was in Italian, and it was just good, kind of singer-songwriter, classic rock, kind of slightly kind of 80s-ish metal. And he really impressed me, and I've sort of been interested in him ever since. Who else? Well, Neil Diamond, actually. I've not seen him live, but a mate of mine did. He saw Neil Diamond. He got dragged along by his missus to a Neil Diamond gig, and he wouldn't stop shutting up. He wouldn't shut up about how good this gig was ever since. And so I went and kind of listened to a load of Neil Diamond's back catalogue. Then I thought, yeah, this guy's got some good songs, Zucchero did a great single with Pavarotti. He did indeed. Yes, I'd forgotten about that, mate. Yes. I saw the Manics in MCI. I was unsure, but they were amazing. Yeah, I mean, was that which lineup of the Manics though, Chip? Was Richie still with them, or had he gone off on his? Well, nobody knows where he's gone, do they? But so yeah, I mean, they're a band I would quite like to go and see live because. Like many people, I suppose, I sort of first really got into them with that album that they did post Richie, Everything Must Change, and then sort of went back and discovered their earlier stuff. Yeah, you're talking there about a Neil Diamond tribute act, mate. One gig that, again, I was kind of dragged along to, that I wasn't expecting to enjoy at all. And I do apologise to whoever he is because I can't remember his name. But it was an Elvis tribute act. And, he was absolutely fantastic, a great showman, and just held the crowd in the palm of his hand. And as he wasn't an Elvis impersonator, okay? He wasn't, kind of doing, he wasn't like, doing an impersonation of Elvis. He was just a tribute. He didn't, go out of his way to look like Elvis or even sing like him. There was obviously a little bit of that going on, but he was, just a great, great entertainer for the evening. And I really, really enjoyed that gig. Notice we've not mentioned Glenn Campbell, brilliant guitarist, plus the Wrecking Crew. Yeah, what were they called? The Wrecking Crew, the world's most unknown famous band, weren't they? Yeah. I remember, because it was round about the time when Glenn had his big hit with Rhinestone Cowboy, you know. Now there's a song I've taught quite a lot of people. Great one for practicing your F chord changes, that one, by the way, if you're so inclined. But yeah, I remember round about that time there was a Glenn Campbell gig on the TV, and I was only a kid at the time, probably about, I don't know, about 10 or 11 year old. And this was at the height of the time when I was, you know, obsessed with 50s rock and roll and, you know, the Darts. Do you remember the Darts? Anyone remember them? Shawaddy Waddy and, you know, the Grease movie and Happy Day. That was my musical universe at the time. But my mother was a massive Glenn Campbell fan, largely off the back of Rhinestone Cowboy. So one evening on the TV, on the Radio Rentals colour TV, the bed TV set in the living room, we had to sit through this, and I really enjoyed that. Yeah, so. But he was a mean guitar player, it has to be said. Yes, Darts were great, weren't they? Wichita Lineman is a great song. Yeah, it has to be said. Do you like The Move, John? Yeah, I mean, it's impossible not to, really, isn't it? I mean, obscure fact for all us Brits here, Flowers in the Rain by The Move was the first song played on BBC Radio 1. I think it was Tony Blackburn, wasn't it, who played that. But anyway, I got to say, I like the bands that came out of The Move more than I like The Move. ELO, love that band. Absolutely fantastic. You know, just, I mean, how do you create a band that is equal parts accessible pop and you know prog? I would say that they do go over that sort of threshold into prog quite a bit. Well, you know, I mean concept albums, you know, kind of big long epic songs. And Wizard, I mean Wizard, one of my favorite bands growing up in the 70s. You know, if you know, not just the Christmas song, but you know, See My Baby Jive, Angel Fingers, all that sort of stuff. Love those. But so I think that once the Move had split, better things came out for you know, my opinion anyway. Yeah, now Robin Trower, or is it Trower? I'm never sure. He's one of those artists that I mean, I've got Bridge of Sighs, which is the album that everybody says is just that, you know, the epitome of, and it's okay. I just never really kind of it's a bit like Joe Bonamassa is to me these days. I should like it, and I don't dislike it, but it just somehow it never kind of gives me the fizz, that sort of warm, gooey feeling. It's you know, great player, you know, great blues guitar player, but it's just I don't know. I can't quite get over the line with Robin Trower. Roy Wood wrote fantastic verse chorus key changes. Yes, another chap who did that was Dave Edmonds. There's a solo analysis of one of his songs coming up sometime soon as well. John, if you ever get the chance, try and find some tunes by a group called the Good Rats. They're a regional band from the New York area, real good. Still don't know why they didn't make it big. Thanks, Lee. I shall check them out. And here's a recommendation for you as well. Again, a band who should have been like massive and made it hugely big in the late 70s, early 80s. Classic rock band, sort of new wave of British heavy metal. A band called Jameson Raid. Check them out. They're absolutely marvelous. Just that real sort of gutsy, you know, but accessible and catchy, you know, kind of heavy rock stroke metal. John, have you covered Just What I Needed by the Cars yet? Yes, mate, did that a while ago. Just search me channel for it. It's up there. and excuse me, great solo. Elliot Easton, fantastic guitarist. You know, it's interesting actually. In retrospect, you know, a lot of the would you call the Cars a new wave band? They were sort of on that riding the kind of coattails of that when they came out. But a lot of the bands that sort of came through that kind of punk new wave. I'm not suggesting that the Cars were punk. I'm just using this to make a point. You know, a lot of the bands who came on that sort of punk new wave kind of thing, you know, they played down their musicianship. They played down the fact, you know, we're just all about three chords and the truth, man. You know, and all that sort of stuff. You go back and listen to this stuff now, and you think, yeah, you were selling yourself short. You know, you're actually really good musicians, really tight bands. I mean, you know, and that for me goes for the Sex Pistols as well. Because you listen to Nevermind the Bollocks, and it's a great rock album, I think. It's just a good classic rock album. I mean, Steve Jones's guitar tone that he gets on that, apart from anything else, is just really good. I can just about tolerate John Lydon or Johnny Rotten's voice. I've spoke about this before, you know, where sometimes the singer's vocals is the price you've got to pay to listen to the great guitar playing. Guns N' Roses. But you know, a lot of that kind of punk stuff that was sold as being, you know, kind of like the unique selling point of it was often that it was, you know, kind of rough around the edges and poor musicianship. Very, very well produced and very well played. You've been listening to Wes Montgomery, have you, Craig? Yeah. Well, here's a recommendation for you. Check out, oh, God, what's he called? Barney Kessel. Barney Kessel, he's another guy that you'll kind of get into, because it's, you know, it's not like a lot of jazz where it's just indulgent, you know, kind of caterwauling. It's tuneful, and you can, you know, it's just got a groove to it. At the same time, pretty much any newish band got classed as new wave. Dire Straits, yeah, Dire Straits, yeah, I remember them getting classed as new wave. Tom Petty, Graham Parker, etc. Yes. For all of you wonderful Patreon supporters out there, I play some Graham Parker on this coming month's podcast. Kenny Burrell, yes, that was the name I was searching for. So yes, Barney Kessel is good, but Kenny Burrell is the name I was trying to think of, Lee. Thank you. Yeah, the album Midnight Blue by Kenny Burrell. It's just a brilliant guitar album, you know, regardless of genre. Also, check out the George Benson Cookbook. That's a fantastic album. You got to go and do some family related stuff, have you, Andy? Well, crack on, mate. We shall continue without you, if that's okay. Steve Jones was a very underrated guitar player. Glenn Matlock was a decent bassist too. Yeah, you know, I mean, that was probably the thing that I think that, I mean, Malcolm McLaren, and I don't wish to speak ill of the dead here, but I will. Malcolm McLaren sowed the seeds of dissent between Glenn Matlock and the rest of the band, I think. Well, it's pretty well documented that he did. And, you know, because he was, you know, a capable musician, and they didn't want, McLaren didn't want a capable musician in the band. He wanted it all to be, you know, raggedy-arsed and rough around the edges. And I think if Glenn Matlock had stayed with the Sex Pistols, who knows what could have happened? You know, they could have gone on to like a longer career and had, you know, and developed as a band. They did survive for a while, you know. but the writing was pretty much on the wall, I think, when Glenn Matlock kind of went. And it's for me, that's one of those great what ifs in rock history. How about a Whitesnake lesson? Anything from the 1987 album? Well, there is a Whitesnake solo coming up in the next couple of weeks, although it's not from that album. When it comes to Whitesnake, I got to tell you, I am very, very much a huge fan of the early albums. Love Hunter and Ready and Willing and all that sort of stuff. And, one of my favourite live albums actually is Live in the Heart of the City. Sid Vicious couldn't play, but fitted the image, indeed. And, when you replace, someone who is, good on their instrument with somebody who can't play the instrument, it sort of it spells the end, doesn't it? Yes, Colin, the Bernie Marsden stuff. There's a really good, actually. Excuse me. There's a really good interview. I mentioned this channel on one of the last videos I did about what YouTube channels I watch. There's a channel called Word in Your Ear, which is run by two ex-presenters of Old Grey Whistle Test, David Hepworth and Mark Ellen. And they do a really good, about hour-long interview with Bernie Marsden, where he just talks about his career and the bands he was in. I didn't know Bernie Marsden used to be in UFO, for example. But he was, although apparently he left because he butted heads with Phil Mogg a little bit too much. Ashton, Pace and Lord, he was in that band as well. Glenn Matlock looked too normal, so was sacked, even though he wrote most of the music. Good band apart from Sid. Yeah, I'm with you on that, mate. It's just one of those things that when image becomes more important than the music, it often, is, well, it not often, it always is detrimental to the music. And, classic case there. As I say, one of the great what-ifs of rock history. What if Glenn Matlock had stayed in the Sex Pistols? What if they'd kind of developed as a band and, and matured? Because, never mind the bollocks is a musically strong album. It's full of great melodies. Yes, I have seen the two Andertons videos with Bernie, Colin. Yeah, great. He just comes across as such a likable, down-to-earth guy. And, his guitar collection is just, to die for, isn't it? I keep meaning to order that book because we're talking about in one of the videos, we're talking about one of the books, which is just like a catalogue of his guitar collection. It's true guitar porn, I suspect. Yeah, Pretty Vacant, one of the most brilliant and exciting guitar intros ever, and it's just a root and a fifth, isn't it? It's just sublime, simple but effective songwriting. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Jason. I got to tell you, it's. I don't dislike the Andertons videos, but I tend to watch the ones where it's an interview with somebody rather than, where they're talking about a product, because you just before you switch it, before you click on it, that it's going to be the best product ever, isn't he? By the way, does anybody want to make a comment about my beer pouring skills? Yes, I know it needs a flake in it, doesn't it? Yeah, I imagine I would get on pretty well with Lee. He seems like a nice bloke, and he's just doing his bit to earn a crust, isn't he? Thank you, Anton. he's just doing his bit to earn a crust. You can't blame the lad for that, you know. And I do love Danish Pete. You know, I think he's just a sublime guitar player. So, you know, I'll watch the videos when I get a chance, which isn't often these days. But let's say this: I don't take them as being an impartial, you know, assessment of the stuff they're reviewing. Sid was a marginally better bass player than Stu Sutcliffe. Well, there is some truth in that, Peter. Bloody hell, John. Cleedon Club, South Shields. Are you talking about me beer pouring skills, are you, mate? Yes, indeed. Yes, it's... well, you know, it is what it is. Apparently there is a flake shortage. Really, that could be the reason. There's a young American lad called Matthew Scott who's brilliant and buys and plays vintage Strats and Tellys. Yeah, I've seen some of his videos crop up in, like, you know, me feed, like, you know, suggestions of stuff to watch, but haven't got round to it yet, to my shame. Chapman guitars, ever played one? Yes, I've played a couple of them, and gotta tell you, I wasn't that impressed. And you know, they were okay, but they just seemed, well, the two that I played were brand new guitars, and they had a lot of stuff wrong with them that shouldn't be wrong with them. Fret sprout and fret buzz, and I mean, stuff that's easily sorted out, you know. But when you're looking at the price tag of these guitars, which is around about the 500 quid mark, and you're thinking, yeah, okay, how come Harley Benton can produce a guitar that plays better than this, or, you know, other brands? And it's just, I don't think they're bad guitars. I just think that the quality control leaves a bit to be desired, as I said, based on the two examples that I've played. Surprised that Dave Simpson has become a Chapman player. Well, you know, I mean, good luck to the lad. You know, he's doing well for himself, isn't he? You know, and he's, if somebody came along and said, you know, would you like some free guitars? Then who's going to say no? You know, it's I don't have a problem with that. You know, I do like when I get the chance to watch him, which isn't that often these days. I do like Dave's videos. You know, it's the thing is though, he rarely does a short video, does he? You know, and if I don't have time to sit down and watch a video in one sitting, you know, then I tend to shy away from it. Paul Davids did a breakdown of 50 Ways to Leave You Love It, and the chord progressions are amazing. Yes, well, you know, Paul Simon was, or is, I should say. What am I saying? Why am I using the past tense? Fantastic, you know, songwriter. You know, just, I mean, think of how many great songs he's written. Yeah, I'm with you on that, HGO. I don't find his tone too dark, I must say, but what I love is the fact that he can pick up any guitar, whether it's a Sub-Zero from Gear for Music or a Fender or a Chapman or whatever, and he sounds like Dave Simpson. And I just get the feeling I'd get on really well with him. I'd you know, he's the sort of bloke that you know, you don't get the feeling that there's going to be any airs and graces there, you know. I'll buy a Fender. If I buy a Fender or a Gibson, it would have to be an expensive one, as I don't see the point in the cheaper models. There are always better options at that price point. Yeah, That's a point of view, Ozzy, and I don't disagree with it, mate. You know, once upon a time, I'm talking here when in my formative years as a guitar player, if you wanted a nice guitar, you had to have the Fender word or the Gibson word on the headstock, because everything else was essentially a copy of those, and they were cheap, and they were cheap and nasty. Usually, I'm talking about brands like Hondo and Marlin and brands like that. But the budget guitar brands have got their act together, and now you can buy a really good guitar, a usable guitar that's 90% as good for something like 20% of the money. And for me, that's a trade-off that I'm perfectly okay with. If I was, I mean, I don't see the point really in buying, as you say, a low-end Gibson, because what's the point? Because all you're doing then is it's like a mate of mine is massive petrol head, and he's always talking about he's just in the process of buying a Mercedes, and he really wants a Porsche. He says, I could afford a Porsche Boxster, but I don't want a Boxster, because it's just a way of saying that you want a 911 but you can't afford one. And there is something of that about kind of the low end of especially like Gibson. If you want a Les Paul standard but you can't afford it, you buy a Les Paul Studio. And it's like, well, why not just buy a guitar that's got kind of better appointments and slightly kind of more opulent look, but from a lesser brand. Anyway, chaps, we've been on almost an hour, and I am getting a bit peckish, it has to be said, and I can smell the meatballs cooking downstairs, and that's had a big kind of impact on this. So once again, thank you all for turning up. It is massively appreciated that 156 of you at the current count have turned up to watch a fat, bald northern lad drink beer and talk cobblers for an hour. Massively appreciated. Thank you all so much. Have a great weekend, and I'll see you all again in the video tomorrow. But for now, I've got to say, time, gentlemen, please.